Welcome back to Arya's Diaries. I'm so glad you're here, especially tonight. This is one of those conversations that feels like it should happen over tea at 2 a.m. when the world is quiet and hearts are loud. Tonight, we're going back, not just in memory, but in feeling, to that first flutter in your chest before you even had the words for it. That secret crush that felt like the most important secret in the world. And we're going to talk about what happens when the universe decides to dust off that secret and hand it back to you 20 years later. So make yourself some tea or pour that glass of wine. Find your coziest blanket. Let's get nostalgic together. Do you remember the song? Not just any song. This song, the one that was playing when you first realized your crush liked the same band, or the one you'd listen to on repeat, imagining a music video starring the two of you. For me, it was Lana Del Rey's Summertime Sadness. Not because it was happy, it's not, but because Leo had mentioned once that his older sister played it all the time. So I played it all the time too. I'd lie on my bedroom floor, the worn carpet scratching my elbows, and I'd listen to Lana's haunting voice and imagine everything. Picnics, holding hands, grown-up conversations. I was 10. I didn't know what summertime sadness even meant, but I knew the feeling of watching him kick a soccer ball during recess, his too big jersey flapping in the wind, and feeling this desperate, beautiful ache in my chest. It was the first time I understood that love could hurt a little, that wanting someone could feel like a bruise you kept pressing on just to feel it throb. He sat 2 rows ahead of me, messy brown hair that curled at the ends, a habit of chewing on his pencil when he was thinking, and these long, artistic fingers that could turn a boring history report into a comic strip masterpiece. I never spoke to him. Not really. Not beyond, can I borrow a pencil, or what page are we on? But in my mind, we had whole lifetimes together. And then summer came. My family moved. Just like that, Leo became a bookmark in the story of my childhood, a pressed flower between the pages of a diary I eventually lost. Fast forward 20 years, a rainy Thursday, I was working from home, wearing my rattiest sweatpants, hair in what my best friend calls a depression bun. I was doomed, scrolling Instagram, then LinkedIn, because apparently my doom needed professional networking too. And then I stopped scrolling. There he was. Leo Martin, graphic designer, based in Brooklyn. The profile picture was clean, professional, a man in his early 30s with kind eyes and a smile that still had that slight crooked tilt. My breath actually caught. I felt that same 10-year-old flutter, that same ridiculous physiological reaction. My cheeks flushed, my hands went cold. I clicked. I devoured every detail. His portfolio was stunning, dreamy, surreal landscapes. He was married, 2 kids, a golden retriever named Apollo. And in his interests section, vinyl collecting, 70s rock, and still trying to beat my high score on Super Mario 64, he still played video games. It felt like finding a message in a bottle I'd thrown into the ocean 2 decades ago. The bottle had traveled the world, collected barnacles, changed shape, but my handwriting was still there. My desperate, hopeful 10-year-old handwriting. I did what any sensible, emotionally stable adult would do. I closed my laptop, poured a generous glass of wine, and put on Billie Eilish's When the Party's Over. Because if you're going to have an existential crisis about your first crush at 3 p.m. on a Thursday, you might as well have the right soundtrack. I waited 3 days, 3 agonizing days where I thought about it constantly, in the shower, while making coffee, while trying to fall asleep. Finally, on Sunday evening, with the golden hour light painting my apartment walls, I did it. I sent a connection request, no note, just the click of a button that felt louder than a firecracker. He accepted within an hour. Then came the notification. Message from Leo Martin. My heart hammered against my ribs like it wanted to escape. The message read, Elena, from Mrs. Henderson's 5th grade, the girl who could spell onomatopoeia without blinking. He remembered the spelling bee, he remembered. We texted for a week, carefully, like we were walking on a frozen lake, testing each step for cracks. And then he asked, are you free for coffee sometime, for old time's sake? The phrase, old time's sake, never carried so much weight. I said yes, obviously. The day of the coffee, I felt like I was preparing for a first date and a funeral simultaneously. I put on a playlist of all the songs I'd loved at 15, The Smiths, The Cure, Lana, and danced around my bedroom while getting ready. I wanted to feel brave. I wanted to feel like the girl who daydreamed about holding his hand. I wore a red dress, not for him, but for me, for the 10-year-old who would have thought a red dress was the peak of sophistication. The cafe was all exposed brick and soft lighting. Indie folk played quietly. The smell of roasted beans and cinnamon filled the air. He was already there, sitting at a corner table, reading a graphic novel. When he saw me, he stood up, and he smiled. Not the polite LinkedIn smile, the real one, the one that reached his eyes and made them crinkle at the corners. Elena, he said, and my name sounded different in his voice, not the way teachers or coworkers said it, softer. We hugged, a brief warm hug where I could smell his cologne, something woody and clean, and feel the solid reality of his shoulders. The first 20 minutes were a delightful nervous rush. We traded stories like trading cards. Remember Mr. Johnson's terrible toupee? Remember the field trip where Sarah threw up on the bus? Remember the time we had to dissect frogs and you pretended to be sick to get out of it? I remember you used to draw, I said, stirring my latte. Dinosaurs in the margins of your notebook. He looked surprised, then pleased. You remember that? I remember everything, I almost said, but I didn't. I just smiled. The conversation deepened. We talked about real things, his recent divorce, how he was learning to be a single dad to his 2 girls, my burnout from a corporate job I hated, my dream of writing a novel. At one point, our hands were both on the table and they were close, so close that if I shifted my pinky finger an inch, they'd touch. And I wanted to. God, I wanted to. Not because I wanted him, necessarily, but because I wanted to connect that thread, to touch the hand of the boy I dreamed about and say, we made it, we're here. I didn't. But the wanting was its own kind of thrill. As we were leaving, he hesitated at the door. The evening had turned to dusk and the streetlights were just flickering on. There's a vinyl fair in the park tomorrow, he said, not looking at me. I was thinking of going, if you like that kind of thing. It wasn't a date, but it wasn't not a date. I said yes. The next day was sunny and crisp, the kind of autumn day that smells like possibility. The park was filled with stalls of vinyl records. We wandered through them, our shoulders brushing occasionally. He'd pull out a record, Fleetwood Mac, the Beatles, Nirvana, and tell me a story about it, about hearing it for the first time in his dad's car. about the summer he listened to it on repeat. I bought a copy of Lana Del Rey's Born to Die. He bought Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon. We got hot apple cider and sat on a bench overlooking the pond. The sun was setting, painting the sky in oranges and purples. "Can I ask you something?" he said, his voice quiet. "Anything." Did you have a crush on me back then?" The question hung in the golden air, direct, gentle, 20 years in the making. I looked at him, at this man with laugh lines and gentle eyes, and a divorce he was still healing from. At this stranger who was also the most familiar person in the world in this moment. "Yes," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I did." He nodded, looking out at the water. "I think I had one on you too, but I was too shy and then you moved." We sat in silence for a long moment. Not an awkward silence, a peaceful one. The kind of silence that comes when a truth finally gets to breathe air after being buried for decades. He drove me home. In his car, Billie Eilish's Ocean Eyes was playing softly. At my door, he didn't try to kiss me. He didn't ask to come up. He just said, "Thank you for today, Elena. It was really nice to reconnect with you." And I knew with a certainty that settled deep in my bones that this was where it ended, not with a bang, but with a soft, perfect closing of a circle. I went inside, put my new Lana Del Rey record on the turntable, poured a glass of wine, and I danced alone in my living room as the sun disappeared completely. And I understood something I hadn't before. That childhood crush wasn't about Leo, not really. It was about my own capacity for wonder. It was about the version of me who could find magic in a shared glance, poetry in a borrowed pencil, a whole epic love story in a single smile. Reconnecting with him wasn't about getting a second chance at love. It was about getting a chance to thank my younger self, to say, "Look at you. Look at how brave you were to feel so much. You didn't know it then, but you were teaching yourself how to love." The thrill at the end wasn't about him. It was about me, about feeling that echo of my own youthful heart and realizing it still beats inside me, that I'm still capable of flutters, of blushes, of buying a record because it reminds me of a beautiful afternoon. The moral isn't you'll reconnect with your first love. Sometimes you shouldn't. Sometimes the magic is in the memory. The moral is this: your first crush was the first love letter you ever wrote to yourself. It was you mapping the territory of your own heart, learning what admiration feels like, what longing tastes like, what hope looks like. So if you think of yours tonight, play that song, wear that color, dance in your living room. Don't do it for them. Do it for the version of you who loved them. Honor that brave, tender heart. Thank it for teaching you how to feel. Because those echoes of first love, they're not calling you back. They're reminding you that you've always known how to love, that the music has always been inside you. And that, my dear listeners, is the most beautiful echo of all. Thank you for sharing this tender, golden hour conversation with me. This is Aria, reminding you that every echo contains a song, and every song began with a heartbeat. Good night.